Hi, we're just going to take a moment with Kevin E. Ross, a little story about the artist behind the art. So, Kevin, I'm finally excited that been able to twist your arm and get you to say yes to the show. So, I want the people to know who has done all that fantabulous art. So, I know you used mixed media, and I don't know anything about it. So, to the layman, what's your art about?
Well, um, my art's about all of the things, all of the styles and the people who have influenced me. I've been influenced by Frank Frazetta, who was a fantasy illustrator, painter in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Boris Vallejo, but I also have some what is that word? Classical influences such as Raphael, Leonardo, Michelangelo. Um, I like to paint people. I like to paint archetypes.
I'm sorry, art types?
Arc
Okay,
archetypes.
okay.
Some people like to pronounce the e. It, I guess you can go either way. Anyway, so I like to paint archetypes. That is, they are representatives of a type of person. Kings, queens, villains, whoever they are, they're a type. In the best of all possible worlds, they would be illustrations, I suppose, in the best of all possible worlds. I'm not sure if I really agree. They would be illustrations for books, but
Mhm.
what I'm doing is illustrating a person who I know in my head. And I use the, um, I always forget this word. So, my paintings are also, I also like to call them portraits of people who don't exist. So I'm always painting people. They're posed and they're static, but I always want to get a sense of the movement before and the movement after to get a sense of not being static. And although my teachers in the past were horrified at the concept of background versus foreground, I paint definite backgrounds that don't seem to have anything to do with the foreground, but they are illustrating something about the person in the foreground. So, and then of course, as you already mentioned, I work in multimedia. Previously, it was watercolor, colored pencil, and gouache. And what was limiting about that is both I use watercolor not as transparent watercolor, but as opaque watercolor, and gouache, which is opaque watercolor. Anyway, it becomes a very arduous, time-consuming thing of little tiny details. So then I started incorporating acrylic because that's what I would do with my backgrounds with. And one of the cool things about acrylic is you really can't get those little tiny details. So it automatically recesses the foreground from the background, or recesses the background from the foreground, so that it appears to be further away. And then the characters I paint with opaque watercolor. I've omitted the colored pencil because that introduced elements of waxiness and having to get the surfaces just so, and it just became untenable. And I didn't like the results. Is the biggest thing. I like small details. I like being able to paint with my little two-hair brush, and of course it has more than two hairs, but it's a very small brush. I like the quintuple zero brush. That's one of my faves. Um, and I paint hairs with that on people whose heads are 3 inches tall. So, and I mean individual hairs, and painting the sparkle in their eye and the color of their irises. I enjoy doing that. So, thus, my media are now acrylic and gouache.
That is so awesome, Kevin. Thank you. This has just really been a great introduction. I can't wait to talk to you further and let the visitors to the art show get more of the story behind Kevin E. Ross, the artiste. Thanks again.
Thank you.